بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. They purified their intentions and made hijrah for the sake of Allah, traveling the earth for His sake. They searched for the victorious group that the Messenger of Allah prophesied, and Allahu Akbar, how they did partake. They gained closeness to their Creator by their wonderful character to the believers, and in their worship they did nothing but cry. They faced the enemies of Allah like mountains of steadfastness and fought to raise the words of Allah high. They protected the deen with their bodies, calling out, "Our Rabb, take from my blood until you are pleased, that one day the oppressed will be at ease." These are the shuhada of this ummah, those who bore witness with hunger, sweat and blood that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah alone. Steeds of the Dawn Media presents an audio presentation entitled To the Eternal Abode Part 1, inspiring accounts and short biographies of the martyrs of the blessed lands of Asham.
شهيد ورا شهيد والموكب عم بيزيد، شهيد ورا شهيد والموكب عم بيزيد. راحوا ما ودعناهم تركوا الأحبة وراهم، راحوا ما ودعناهم تركوا الأحبة وراهم، لكن بالذكرى
Abu Aisha al-Qasawi.
التوحيد، لكن بالذكرى أهل التوحيد. يا مو ظلم الأعادي يا مو.
Abu Aisha al-Qasawi was a man worth 1,000 men. He, Abu Aisha, may Allah have mercy on him, came from Kosovo. He was part of the special forces in Kosovo and fought in the Kosovo War. There, Allah willed for him to learn the art of warfare and special operations. He was once a wealthy man, considered to have millions. He had everything that the seekers of this dunya chase after. But Abu Aisha, may Allah have mercy on him, realized that the pleasures of this world was nothing but a passing enjoyment, and that this life is very short. And he realized that nothing in the hereafter would save him except his actions, so he changed his lifestyles to one that the owner of the heavens and the earth was pleased with. He became active in da'wah and Islamic-related activities. He was even arrested by the government for helping in the construction of a masjid that the government did not approve of. He was then released. It is the sunnah of Allah that He tests whom He loves. Abu Aisha was not deterred by the difficulty of this path, as he knew that success lay only in helping the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He spent his money in the path of Allah to such an extent that he became poor. Abu Aisha developed deep sense of self-honor or ghairah for the Muslims. An incident that was mentioned that illustrates this. A sister complained to Abu Aisha that there was an individual in the marketplace who was harassing her because of her niqab, her face veil. Abu Aisha went to the man in the marketplace and beat him severely, and continued to do so until the police were called at the scene. Abu Aisha knew that the governing system was a secular one, and that he would never receive justice, and it did not rule by Islamic principles. He therefore refused the arrest, pulled out a handgun, and escaped on his motorbike. Such was his courage and quick thinking. Abu Aisha had a dream in which he saw himself climbing giant steps which lead to the middle of the sky. He climbed to the top until there were no more steps, and then he began to fly. He sought an interpretation of this dream and was told, "You will reach the pinnacle of ibadah, of worship." As the revolution of the Muslims of Sham against the disbelieving tyrants began, news and pictures of Assad's brutal crimes against the Muslims went across the globe. While the Muslim Ummah was oblivious to the plight of their Muslim brothers and sisters in Sham, Abu Aisha knew that there was no solution to Kufr tyranny except through jihad. With his wealth and soul, he refused to be deceived by the life of this world and its pleasures. He rushed to the blessed land of Asham to assist his brothers, and was one of the first brothers from Kosovo to arrive in Asham for jihad. When he arrived in Asham, he was eager for shahada and signed up for ingamasi, meaning a mujahid whose job is to storm the enemy until he is killed. This is the best form of shahada as reported in the meaning of the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ, because this person does not even look back or turn around, he only approaches the enemy front on. He was selected to partake in a special operation. His capabilities and knowledge of warfare was quickly recognized by his trainers. One of his trainers, who was a skilled veteran from the lands of Khurasan, this is what he had to say about Abu Aisha. During training, Abu Aisha had started to show me things that I myself didn't know. So he decided that Abu Aisha should train the group of Ingamasis instead of himself. After this, Abu Aisha was appointed to train and lead the commando unit of Jabhat al-Nusra, which comprised of especially skilled Muhajirin and Ansar. He opened up the route for many Muhajirin from Kosovo and Albania to come to Asham. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that hundreds came from those lands to such an extent that at one point the largest number of Muhajirin came from that area, Kosovo and Albania. He loved spending most of his time on the front lines. A brother who was with him said that he never met anybody as fearless as him. In battle, Abu Aisha used to advise the brothers not to fear anyone except Allah. He used to recite the dua, Bismillahi alladhi la yudawwu ma'a ismihi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama'i wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. The meaning of which is, in the name of Allah, in whose name nothing can harm you in the heavens or on the earth, and He is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. After reading this dua, he would run forward fearlessly without looking back. He taught the brothers reliance on Allah by telling them, what is decreed to hit you will not miss you, and what is decreed to miss you will never hit you. Once Abu Aisha was in a cellar of a house that was surrounded by disbelieving soldiers. Between the brothers and the kuffar were no more than 10 meters. Abu Aisha decided to break through the only passageway alone. He ran up the stairs firing his Kalashnikov at the kuffar. Suddenly Abu Aisha saw a Kafir soldier pointing an RPG directly at him. The last thing that he said he remembered was seeing a strong white light covering his vision. He thought that the light was actually angels and he was waiting to meet the Hurul Ain. Only after hearing the voice of his brothers calling him did he realize that he was not yet Shaheed. The blast of the RPG was exploded right next to him, and he had fallen back down the stairs into the cellar. Allah had not willed for him Shahada at this point, as much more work was to be taken from this individual.
عبيد الخصم لا تبقوا جحودا عبيد الخصم لا تبقوا جحودا ولوا أولادنا للدين حصنا خذوا الأكباد للأقصى.
A Bosnian brother who accompanied Abu Aisha after this incident describes him as follows. After he had healed from the injury, we went together to fight in Arqab, Aleppo. To describe his courage is very difficult. Whenever I would retell his actions, it sounded like I was describing a fairy tale. He went alone to the disbelievers, passing through the most risky of places where it's almost impossible to survive. We shouted at him not to do that, but everything was in vain. After multiple daily incursions, we had to go back to the hospital because of the wounds that had befallen him. Abu Aisha, may Allah have mercy on him, was continually in the remembrance of Allah. His lips were always moving, even during training. Whenever the brothers looked at him, they saw his lips continually in the dhikr of Allah. A brother says, I heard someone constantly crying in every salah. I did not know who it was until one day I performed salah next to Abu Aisha. It was then that I realized that it was his voice that I had been hearing. It is reported that he sometimes used to spend from Dhuhr salah till Asr in salah, and most of the time in sajda. In the camp, he regularly performed the night salah and woke the others to perform salah as well. The brothers who were with him describe him to be from the very best of commanders. He did not burden his soldiers with duties, rather he opted to do them himself. If there were tasks to be done, he would go about carrying them out without ordering anything upon his soldiers. They would see him working, feel ashamed of themselves, and rush to his help. If he decided to train his soldiers for a continuous 5 hours, he would do it himself and would lead from the front. A brother, Sulaiman, who trained under Abu Aisha, reports the following. He used to train us but could not communicate to us in a language that he was fluent in, and therefore spoke to us with the limited English that he had. Although his English was weak, he would teach us with his passion and enthusiasm that is unmatched, especially when trying to explain a hadith from the copy of Bukhari that he used to carry. He loved the deen and the Muslims, and he had his burning hatred for the kuffar. He used to get so emotional and angry when he would tell us about what the kuffar are doing to the Muslims around the world. The brothers who trained under him mentioned that he used to train them for many long, hard hours. At some point, some brothers found it hard and probably did not give their full energy. Abu Aisha became upset with the brothers and told them if they do something sincerely for Allah, He would open ways for them and lighten their tasks. Then he gave them an example from his own experiences and said, Wallahi, I am not telling you this to show off, but rather to teach. I used to fast every second day for many years, but I would not feel hungry because while I was fasting at a certain time of the day, I would be able to taste dates and honey in my mouth. It was showing the brothers that if an action is done purely for Allah's sake, then He would make it easy. On another occasion, he told the brothers that his training that they were doing is nothing in comparison to what the kuffar armies do. For us, it is only the means to victory. We do what we can and leave the rest to Allah. He said that in his jahiliyyah, he used to train 3 hours a day and that the kuffar are training night and day. So how can we relax and take it easy whilst our sisters are being assaulted by these filthy kuffar? So Abu Aisha, a lion of Islam, moved from battle to battle, raining fire upon the disbelievers and searching for martyrdom in the land where the angels spread their wings. The battles in Halab bore testimony to his braveness. He then received the glad tidings that he would receive for what he searched for. Abu Aisha dreamt that he would be martyred alongside 4 of his companions. As the promised hour arrived, the Mujahideen attacked one of the dens of Kufr, the Handrat brigade of the Asad army. Our hero Abu Aisha fought bravely. His group came under an attack from 23mm anti-aircraft weaponry. As the brothers found cover, Abu Aisha refused to hide. He stood up tall facing the enemies of Allah. He was struck by a shrapnel from the bullets. After spending just a few months in the land of glory, Abu Aisha fell down shaheed. His eyes were staring at the sky and witnesses saw a glow emanating from his eyes. We ask Allah to accept him, his wealth and soul, and enter him into the expanses and gardens of paradise. Our Amir, Abu Aisha al-Qasawi.
أبو عائشة تتعثر الكلمات في وصفه ويحتار المرء في ذكر مزاياه. أتكلم عن رجولته وإقدامه أم عن رقة قلبه وحبه لإخوانه؟ كان أبو عائشة رحمه الله مدرب العمليات الخاصة لمجاهدي جبهة النصرة في حلب. دائما ما يبحث عن الشهادة وينتظرها، جسد يمشي على الأرض وروح معلقة في السماء. قتل رحمه الله في اقتحام كتيبة حندرات عندما تقدم نحو أحد مدافع 23 التي ترمي على المجاهدين، فقتل بنيران هذا السلاح مقبلا غير مدبر. نسأل الله العظيم أن يتقبله في الشهداء ويجمعنا به في الفردوس الأعلى.
تمهل إنني ما زلت أحفظ قيمة العهد. نبي ودع الدنيا لديه يحفظ العهد، له في كل ضائقة يد بيضاء تمتد. نبي ودع الدنيا لديه يحفظ العهد، له في كل ضائقة يد بيضاء تمتد، وفي الهيجاء صاعقة على الأعداء تشتد.
يا ساريا في ظلام الليل مبتهلا ترجو الوصول سليما في ليالينا.
Abu Ubaidah al-Dagestani.
وهل أدركت يا لبقا أن الطريق شديد المكر يغوينا.
A brave lion of the Caucasus, Abu Ubaidah, a brother of Dagestani descent, who joined the jihad in Asham in its early stages after hearing of the atrocities committed by this criminal Nusayri regime and its allies upon the believers. Abu Ubaidah was known for his encouraging brothers and his courage that he displayed. Bravery is not a quality unknown to the sons of Caucasus. Once during the battle of the famous Aleppo prison, some brothers, including Abu Ubaidah, had left some weapons in a position close to the enemy and had temporarily retreated during the course of the battle. By this time it was unclear whether the enemy had taken the position or not. During this, Abu Ubaidah realized that these weapons were an amana and went back on his own to retrieve these weapons, risking his life in the process.
التي كانت لنا حينا وأين منا منارات لترشدنا.
Many of the shuhada have distinguishing qualities that separates them from others. The one thing that was said about Abu Ubaidah was his love for reciting the Quran. He would go under the trees in the olive fields in the blessed lands of Asham and read Quran for hours, secluding himself from others. It is narrated that if anybody came to him during this time and started to prolong the conversation, he would change the subject and say things like, "You know, brother, Allah has placed guidance for us in this Quran." An other person would realize that the brother wants to be left alone, but was too polite to say so directly. As the Mujahideen in Sham pounded the Kuffar regime of Bashar, the regime struck deals with the secular Kurdish parties. The regime promised these secular groups an independent Kurdish state if they helped the attack the Mujahideen. As always, parties of disbelief ally themselves to fight the awliya of Allah. The coalition was made and the PKK secular Kurdish militia began attacking the Mujahideen at their camps. Scores of brothers were martyred treacherously. However, the Mujahideen fought back and Allah gave the Muslims a tremendous victory on the hands of a few believing souls. The brothers were able to retake places taken by the PKK fighters and also force them into making temporary truces with them. Abu Ubaidah, may Allah have mercy on him, had gained experience in 9 months. He was in the land of glory, Asham, and had considerable know-how of military affairs, and thus was made Amir of the Albanian group in many operations. On the 24th of September 2013, Abu Ubaidah organized the ranks of the Mujahideen at Ras Al Ain to fight the atheist PKK militias. When the battle began, Abu Ubaidah portrayed tremendous bravery in leading the attack on the kuffar. The fight was intense and many brothers had received injuries. Among them was Abu Ubaidah. He had been shot twice in the lower side of the abdominal area. He had told the brother next to him that he was shot whilst holding the area of his wound with his hand. The brother took him to a secure place where the other brothers were kept and asked him to wait until some medical help arrived. When the brother returned, he had found him to be unconscious and thus perceived him to have passed away. However, shortly after, he had heard a soft voice making shahada with his finger pointing to the sky. Some medical attention was given to Abu Ubaidah, but a lot of blood had been lost, and after holding on for 2 strenuous hours, the brother's soul was taken by Allah, the Master of life and death. He was aged 23. The body of Abu Ubaidah remained fresh for the entire time, which was about 24 hours. As Amir Musa recalls the incident, and he says, I went the very next day, almost about 24 hours later from the time of his martyrdom. I could still smell the nice smell emanating from his body. This is a great miracle that was given to our brother. Another brother narrates about him, Abu Zubayr al-Bani, that he has spent time in the training camp with his brother, and he will usually lead them in Fajr Salah due to his melodious recitation of the Quran. And people believe that he was a great leader and Amir of the Mujahideen. We ask Allah to accept our brother and place him in the highest parts of Al-Firdaus.
One of the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, ما بال المؤمنين يفتنون في قبورهم إلا شهيد. O Messenger of Allah, how come the believers go through the trials, the fitna of the grave, but the shaheed doesn't? Rasulullah ﷺ said, كَفَى بِبَارِقَةِ السِّيُوفِ عِنْدَ رَأْسِهِ فِتْنَةً. The shining of the swords over his head is enough of a fitna for him. In the battlefield, when the swords are shining over his head, and that glimmering of light is reflected off the swords, and you see death in every moment, that is the fitna for the shaheed. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give him pleasure and tranquility in the grave. And today we would say that the same thing applies to the fire. The explosions and the missiles and the bullets that pass next to the fighters, the mujahideen, in the sake of Allah, that is their fitna. But then, when they are killed in the sake of Allah, they would get pleasure in their graves. Because they have went through enough. They have went through fitna when they were in the middle of the
من جديد قد ولدت بعدما في الله مت وارتقت روحي لخلد يا لسعد الآن فزت.
Abu Faisal al-Kuwaiti.
بعدما في الله مت وارتقت روحي لخلد يا لسعد الآن فزت.
Abu Faisal, may Allah have mercy on him, was from Kuwait, but his origins were from Yemen. He was a young brother who left his studies in America, the US, and joined the Mujahideen in Asham, responding to the call in a time when many Muslims around the world have abandoned the obligation of jihad. The parents of Abu Faisal were not happy with him coming to Asham, but he understood that obedience to his parent was a command from Allah Azza wa Jal, and if their command went against the command of Allah, then he was not to obey them. Abu Faisal wished to get martyrdom in which he would be able to intercede on behalf of his family, as mentioned in the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ as the virtues of the Shuhada. Brother Noman says about him,
أخونا وحبيبنا من أهل الجزيرة، خصوصا من اليمن، أصله من اليمن. لما انتقلنا إلى معسكر الثاني على أساس الذهاب إلى الغزوة تعرفت على الأخ عن قرب، وكان الأخ ما شاء الله نحسبه الله نحسبه، يعني إن قلت أنه أفضل أخ مجاهد أتعرف عليه يعني ما بالغت. عجيب سبحان الله، كان الأخ ما شاء الله في العبادة في القيام، حتى أنه كان قدوة لإخواني في المعسكر سبحان الله. فدائما تدخل مسجد تجد أبو فيصل أو يتوضأ أو يؤذن.
Was our brother, our beloved. He was from the Arabian Peninsula, specifically from Yemen. His origins were from Yemen. We went to the camp, then to battle. I came to know the brother closely. The brother was mashallah. If I say that he was the best person I knew, I would not be exaggerating. Subhanallah, he was amazing in his worship and standing in salah. He was an example for his brothers. Whenever you enter the masjid, you would either find him making wudu, giving adhan, reciting Quran, always engaged in worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. All this, and in addition to his good mannerism, his ikhlaq, he was concerned about the ummah and the brothers all the time.
أبو فيصل ما شاء الله. أبو فيصل
الغريب نقول الاسم. أسأل الله لي ولكم الثبات والإخلاص إن شاء الله. أسأل الله أن يختم لنا بالشهادة بسم أسأل الله الثبات والإخلاص يا أخي. سلمونا على الربع الاستشهاد. الربع؟ أيوه. شلونك الربع؟ طيبين والله. بالحارة أبو الدردة القناصة يا طويل العمر. اسهم بينها وبين خالد إسماعيل وعبد الفتاح ومحسن، اسهم بينهم. قلنا من الكلاش والجعبة بسهم بين عبد الفتاح ومحسن عن الكلاش والجعبة، والفلوس تقاسموها ولا تبرعوا بها. سلمونا على الرب.
كل أرض وكلمهم يروي الغصون، بالأمس فجعنا الخطوب بأرض الشام يحضنون.
He was a very brave brother and courageous when it came to fighting. He spent the night before the day of his martyrdom, standing in prayer before Allah, asking for his favor. He received what he wished for in the village of Naqrin, in the province of Halab. Brother Uman says, I now console his family, and I say to them, praise be to Allah, that Allah took a man who we bore witness to his good manners, particularly about worship, particularly about performing good deeds, particularly about serving his brothers. As I said, I would not be exaggerating if I said he was the best person I knew. So may Allah have mercy upon the youthful, the Shabab, Abu Faisal, and enter him into the blessings of Al-Jannah. And may Allah guide the youth of the Ummah of Muhammad to follow his example and rush to the lands of martyrdom and glory.
هذا النواح في كل ناح، والدمع لا يرضى الظنون. يا عين من تبكي ومن تخطف الصحب المنون. بشراك يا أم الشهيد، بشرى من الله المجيد. ليس الشهيد بميت بل عند رزاق العبيد. بشراك يا أم
أبو رانا الجزراوي.
بشرى من الله المجيد. ليس الشهيد بميت بل عند رزاق العبيد.
From the land of Wahi and Quran to the land which the angels surround with their wings. Abu Rana al-Jazrawi was from the Arabian Peninsula, from the land of the Haramain. Abu Rana was studying engineering, and in terms of the world, his future looked really bright, as he was a very intelligent student. He was like most youth in the Muslim world, oblivious to his duties. He was confused about the realities of the betraying rulers of the Muslim world and the dire state of this ummah. But Allah had willed for him to be shown the straight path. One day a brother gave him some of the writings of our Shaykh Abu Muhammad al-Maqdisi. Suddenly everything became clear for him. Allah placed the love of jihad in his heart and concern for the affairs of the ummah. Abu Rana was not one who was satisfied to have the correct understanding only. Rather, he had to follow it. Just a month after reading the books of Sheikh Maqdisi, Abu Rana left his homeland and close ones to answer the call of Allah in the blessed land of Asham. Abu Rana was a very well-mannered brother. He had a beautiful and also had a very beautiful voice. He loved listening to the Quran, and soon he was promoted to be the commander of the camp. But he still used to serve his brothers and did a lot of work on his own. Brother Abu Bakr al-Muhajir explains his meeting with Abu Rana. I first met Abu Rana when I just arrived in Asham. I did not know anyone, and I could not speak to anyone as most brothers didn't speak English. I was informed that Abu Rana was the Amir of the base that I was in, but he had not arrived. I waited to see the Amir, expecting that an Amir was a big giant or some type of very scary, serious-looking brother, as I was new to jihad and I had some sort of silly expectations. But after 2 or 3 days, our Amir Abu Rana arrived. To my surprise, he was a nice, smiling brother who greeted us in the best way possible. We did not know that he spoke English. After he mentioned a few words, we gladly asked him whether he spoke the language. He began talking to us in perfect English. Surprisingly, as he was from the peninsula, most brothers there do not speak English. Abu Rana always used to help us by translating things, even jokes that the brothers around us cracked. He tried to make us comfortable. Almost everybody loved him, from the youngest brother to the oldest, because of his nice character.
فله التهاني كلما زار الخيال خياله بشرى يا أم الشهيد بشرى من الله المجيد.
Abu Rana would sometimes teach the brothers military tactics that he had learned from others. The brothers in the camp were always happy for his presence. Abu Rana was afflicted with jaundice, but remained patient in the land of jihad until Allah recovered him fully. And then after that he left that small brigade in which he was to join a bigger group named Jabhat al-Nusra, as he wanted to join the major battles that were being fought against the kuffar. He intended to carry out martyrdom operations and attempted to do it, but Allah had not willed for the operation to succeed. He then left to take part in another battle called An-Anfal in the Ladikia area. This was a major operation against the Nusayri army in their mountain strongholds. Abu Rana joined the battle. Assad's Nusayri army dropped huge amounts of bombs, which were most of them barrels and other type of explosives. One of them is believed to have taken our brother Abu Rana in that explosion. We hope that Allah keeps him smiling and makes him comfortable like he used to make us comfortable in the highest positions in Al-Jannah.
ليس الشهيد بميت بل عند رزاق العبيد.
أودعكم وأنتم لي عيوني أودعكم بدمعات العيون أودعكم وأنتم لي عيوني أودعكم
Hafiz Azam al-Muhajir.
أودعكم وفي قلبي لهيب.
Azam was a very young-looking brother with a light beard and very innocent deer-like eyes. He had a moderately thin frame and everyone thought he was from the Arabian Peninsula, as his looks deeply resembled the Jazarawi brothers. Once after Salah, some English brothers asked him from where he was from, and in his soft smiling voice he replied in English, "I am a cocktail. My mom is Turkish and my dad Egyptian, and I was brought up in the Emirates." In the autumn of 2013, a special training camp, Muaskar, was being conducted under the leadership of an experienced Mujahideen commander. This commander, mashallah, fought alongside our hero Amir Khattab, rahimahullah. His name was Abu Qatada al-Bani. The Mu'askar had pulled many of the new brothers to it from different backgrounds that needed combat training, as Abu Qatada was going to transmit his knowledge and skills which he had taken from Amir Khattab and the other old school Mujahideen commanders. In some of the classes we even had handwritten notes from Amir Khattab himself. Before the start of the classes, brothers were coming to the location of the Mu'askar in badges. Azam came to the Mu'askar a day before the classes started and came with a batch of about 30 brothers. Nevertheless, Azam was quick to be distinguished as he led the brothers in Salah, with his beautiful voice that penetrated the hearts of the Mujahideen. Thereafter he quickly jumped behind the counter and started helping in the kitchen, as the prayer and eating area was one big hall at the corner of which was a kitchen, separated by a counter about waist height. At first everyone thought that Azam was just helping out that day, as brothers often would. But after a few days we realized that Azam was constantly in the kitchen helping with meals, washing dishes, and in continuously serving the brothers for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was not long before the brother was made responsible for the kitchen by the Amir of the mosque. This is the voice of our brother Azam while reciting Quran in Salatul Fajr.
يوم يقول المنافقون والمنافقات للذين آمنوا انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم قيل ارجعوا وراءكم فالتمسوا نورا فضرب بينهم بسور له باب باطنه فيه الرحمة وظاهره من قبله العذاب ينادونهم ألم نكن معكم قالوا بلى ولكن
The piety of this brother was remarkable. He would often advise the brothers to fear Allah and not to engage in israf, wastefully consuming, and would also get upset if someone took more than their share. However, no one could have any malice against him, as they knew he himself would be the last to eat and would give himself less than everybody else, no matter how hungry he was. He would wait for everyone to have eaten and then scrape out the pot to eat whatever was left. This was very hard to do in a mosque, as you'd been hungry for several hours. I often witnessed this with my own eyes. One of the most beautiful incidences which I can recall was once in the training camp on a Thursday night, when most of the brothers were asleep and others were gathered around in one of the rooms singing nasheeds as the Mujahideen often would. I went to the toilets to make my preparations for sleeping, where I saw that the wudu area was sparkling clean and I could hear some noise of cleaning coming from the showers. So I went with my torch to see what was happening, where I found Azam with a brush and some cleaning liquid, scrubbing the showers and the toilets. I was amazed and offered to help, but he said that he was alright and didn't need any help. Upon insisting, we cleaned and organized the toilets for another hour and a half after that. I saw how tired he was, and only Allah knows how long he had been doing the cleaning for. I'd asked him why he was doing this, and he replied, "Tomorrow is Jummah, and brothers will come to shower, and it's good to have the place clean for them." This incident with Azam showed me his sincerity and his willingness not to miss out in any opportunity to please Allah Azza wa Jal. During the physical training sessions in the morning, Azam always showed a lot of enthusiasm and never complained about the intensity of the training. I recall him wearing his winter sports gloves, clapping his hands, encouraging the brothers and cheering them on, calling them by name when it was their turn to embark upon the sequence course. He always encouraged others and lifted the morale of the whole camp. Whenever the brothers sat around to drink kahwa and sing nasheeds, Azam would not be missing in action. You would find him in the midst of the brothers singing nasheeds with them. The way Azam balanced between his ibadah and the service of the brothers was a reminder of Khattab's statement. when he said, "How can I sleep when my days are for the people and my nights are for Allah?" Brothers during Hiras guarding duty at night would often see Azam praying in a corner of the masjid, reciting the words of Allah in a low, beautiful tone.
هل تسمعون توجعي هل تسمعون
اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص في القول والعمل، اللهم اجعل عملنا خالصا لوجهك الكريم، اللهم ارزقنا شهادة في سبيلك، اللهم إنا نسألك شهادة في سبيلك، اللهم خذ من دمانا حتى ترضى، اللهم خذ من دمانا حتى ترضى.
Fajr Salah behind Azan was always something else. I recall one of the brothers saying that I don't feel the same khushu of Salah behind anyone like I do behind Azan. He was one of the memorizers of the Book of Allah, and he always made it a point to make dua qunut in every fard Salah. There was hardly a dry eye at the end of Salah that he led, especially in Fajr. One dua in particular that really touched my heart and used to convince me that this brother would surely be chosen by Allah for the greatest honor was that he used to say in his dua, Allahumma khudh min dima'ina hatta tarda. O Allah, take from our blood until you are pleased. I used to be amazed at this dua and used to think, who would make that dua? O Allah, take from our blood until you are pleased. Indeed, a friend, a close friend of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
يريدون قتلي وقتلي حياتي هلما لعيش العلا والهدى هلما جنودا جنود الطغاة هلما لقاتلي لأعلو السماء هلما جنودا جنود الطغاة هلما لقاتلي لأعلو السماء يريدون قتلي وقتلي حياتي هلما لعيش العلا والهدى.
A week before Eid, classes came to a pause, and some brothers took the opportunity to go to the front line in Safira. Azam was amongst these brothers. One of the brothers that was with him describes his experience saying, "We were 5 brothers. We were put in a small house and no one told us to make hiras, guarding duty that night. But when we woke up for tahajjud, we realized that Azam was making hiras for everyone by the door, and during the day he was making ditches and khandaks for the brothers to shoot from. Azam never missed a moment to beat the brothers to do a good deed." Shortly after Eid, Azam and the brothers returned from the front line to the mosque. None of the brothers were injured, but Azam suffered a slight limp in his leg from a fall that he had received. Classes resumed as normal, and Azam was a little less active due to the pain in his foot and lower back. He would often tell me that it seemed to him that knives were being stabbed in his lower back from the pain that he was feeling. At this juncture, some of the brothers asked him, "Why don't you go to Turkey for some proper treatment?" At that he replied, "It is more beloved to me to die from sickness in the blessed land of jihad than to risk dying in some other country." After about 2 weeks, the limp in his foot started to go away and he was seen getting better. One of the brothers narrates the following about him. "I believe it was a Tuesday and Azam had packed his bags and started distributing some of his belongings, and then suddenly came into the class and told the Amir in charge of the mosque, at that time Ali Albani, that I'm going out for a few days. I'll be back by Friday inshallah." Ali then asked him where he was going, for Ribat or to the shops, as the time was during middle of the classes. At that he replied, "For both inshallah." All the brothers hugged Azam goodbye, but were all expecting him to return shortly. After a few days, it was just before Maghrib time. There was an awkward silence in the mosque, and Ali Albani was received by a brother, another Albanian brother, that brought him some news saying that a Hafiz from this mosque had been martyred. At once, everyone knew it was Azam, but some brothers were trying to comfort others by saying that it could be a mistake, and that it might be someone else. However, the Albanian brother that came to tell us the news started describing what had happened, and started describing the Shaheed. We soon realized that it was Azam. He said there was about 3 brothers with him, and as they descended the car and were advancing towards the enemy, suddenly shots were fired, and Azam fell to the ground, pointing to him his index finger to the sky and mumbling the Shahada. 2 shots were fired in the chest of our brother.
ألا يا إخوة في الله كنتم على المأساة لي خير معيني أودعكم
A few brothers had met Azam in one of the guest houses on the day of his Shahada. They narrated, "We were at a guest house and we bumped into Azam. We asked him what he was doing there, and he said he was trying to catch a ride to the front line. We told him we were heading there too, and asked him if he wanted a ride. He brought his stuff and put in the back of our pickup truck. And he said, 'I'll be back.' We started to leave for the front line and forgot about Azam and his bags being in the back of our car until we reached about halfway. At this point, we decided to turn back and go and get Azam, or at least return his bags to him. We hardly went a few kilometers back when we saw another car coming towards us. Azam was in it. We stopped the cars and greeted each other, and Azam started reaching for his bags. At this point, suddenly an explosion occurred about 40 meters from the car. We all ducked in fear, and I also saw fear on Azam's face. But suddenly I saw him nudge his head with determination and go forward. When I heard he was martyred on the same day, I realized what that nudge meant. Allahu Alam. But by looking at Azam's face that day, I believe he knew his Shahada was close, and that nudge was a nudge of determination to go forward. I ask Allah to also give us such prior inclination of Shahada when our time comes, so that we may also be steadfast in receiving it. Today in the Muslim world, very common to see memorizers of the Quran, but how few are those who truly carry this burden, as the words of Allah should be carried. In the battle against Musaylim al-Kadhab, when it was said to the companions, "If you memorizers die in the battle, the Quran will be lost." And they responded by saying, "If we think like that, then we have not carried this burden at all, i.e. the Quran has already been lost." From the example of the best of generations, we see that those who memorize the Book of Allah were always in the history of this Ummah in the front line. We hope that Allah will join our brother Azam in the highest parts of Al-Jannah. We also hope that Azam's story will serve as an example in our time to all those that carry the words of Allah in their hearts. And good words are for good men, and good men are objects of good words. Surah Nur, verse 26.
المجاهد والبطل بثبات عز شامخا شم الجبال نظرات وجهك إذ تقول مزمجرا أقوى وأبلغ من كلام والفعال بعزيمة لم تنكسر وصلابة
Sheikh Abu Ahmad al-Maghribi.
تمرغ في الرمال إني على عهد الشهادة سائر سيف المجاهد في يدي ولا يزال عزيمة لم تنكسر وصلابة عدونا أنف تمرغ.
Sheikh Ibrahim bin Shukran, also known as Abu Ahmad al-Maghribi, was born in Casablanca, Morocco. The Sheikh grew up in Morocco and attended school there, where he was noted for his skill in the French language. In 1999, Sheikh Abu Ahmad heard about the newly established Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and the uprising of the Muslims. He heard the callers of faith call to the forgotten obligation of jihad, and thus Abu Ahmad left the world behind and rushed to the school of jihad, Afghanistan, which was ruled by Mullah Muhammad Umar Mujahid. May Allah protect him. He enrolled in the famous Al-Faruq camp, which was overseen personally by Sheikh Osama bin Laden. He trained under the distinguished and experienced commanders such as Faruq al-Asuri, may Allah protect him, who is the top hierarchy of military affairs for Jabhat al-Nusra al-Qaeda in Asham.
فرثاؤكم متجاوز حد المقال.
Sheikh Abu Ahmad was in Afghanistan on September 11, 2001, when America, the head of Kufr, received its historic humiliating blow. Abu Ahmad remained firm as the Crusader armies of the West poured into Afghanistan. He stood with the Mujahideen as they fought the Americans and their allies. The Mujahideen then retreated to the tribal areas of Pakistan to reorganize the jihad. From the tribal areas, Abu Ahmad and the Mujahideen crossed to and fro the border, attacking the Americans by the permission of Allah. At this juncture, Allah had decreed that he fell into the hands of the traitorous Pakistani police, who handed him over to the Americans for some miserly price in this dunya. Sheikh Abu Ahmad was imprisoned in Bagram Air Base and transferred to Guantanamo prison, where he was given the prison number 587.
ابكي دما يا عيون لي إخوة في السجون.
It is mentioned that he often filled the corridors of Guantanamo with his sweet recitation of Allah's book. After spending almost 2 years in Guantanamo, Sheikh Abu Ahmad was transferred to a jail of the puppet regime in Morocco. He was a person of gentle character and all those around him loved him. A brother who was a prisoner with him in the prisons of Morocco says, all the brothers used to respect him and he respected them. His habit was not to lift his fair head in the face of the brothers. He did not differentiate between the brothers, between the rich and the poor. He sat with everyone and smiled with all. One day one of the brothers told him, I wish to live in the desert and have some goats and sheep. Sheikh Abu Ahmad said to him, now you have fulfilled the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. You will be pleased with following the tails of cows and farming. He was referring to the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ that states that if the Muslims abandon jihad, they will be humiliated by Allah until they return back to their religion. Having spent a short while in the jails of Morocco regime, Allah willed that Abu Ahmad was set free. Sheikh Abu Ahmad did not recline towards the dunya until he was released, showing the piety of this man. A few years later, he was arrested again for providing nusra support for Azdi through some jihadi activities. He was then released for a second time.
وطغى أهل الحرام وطغى الحكام فينا فغدا الصبح ظلام فتمادى الظلم فينا وطغى أهل الحرام وطغى الحكام فينا فغدا الصبح ظلام مجلس الأمن ينادي بالعداء وبالخصام لا تنادوا بالسلام إنما السلم كلام.
As the jihad in Asham began, Sheikh Abu Ahmad joined those who were rushing to aid the Syrian Muslims, seeking martyrdom or victory for the deen of Allah. Sheikh Abu Ahmad established a movement in Sham called Harakat al-Sham al-Islam, comprising of mainly Moroccan Muhajirin. Later, many Muhajirin and Ansar joined the movement, which was based in the rural Latakia mountains of Sham.
حاربوه على الدوام حاربوا الإسلام حربا وبأسلحة عظام حاربوا الإسلام حربا حاربوه على الدوام حاربوا الإسلام حربا وبأسلحة عظام إن يكن هذا سلام فعلى الدنيا السلام لا تنادوا بالسلام.
One of the major battles that Sheikh Abu Ahmad and his group took part in is the battle called Ma'araka Ummahatul Mu'mineen Aisha, meaning the battle of the mother of the believers Aisha. This battle was a response to the regime's barbaric chemical attack on the Muslims of Ghouta. The objective of this battle, which was launched by the Mujahideen, was to strike at the Nusayri heartland in response to the attacks on the regions of Ahl Sunnah. This battle was launched in Ramadan 1434, corresponding to August 2013. The Mujahideen dealt painful blows to the enemy under the leadership of some of the fiercest commanders in Asham, such as Muslim Shishani, Sakar al-Jihad, Sheikh Abu Ahmad and many others. They successfully drew away Assad's forces from Halab and Idlib as the enemy needed its troops in Ladikia to respond to the Mujahideen onslaught in the Nusayri strongholds. The Mujahideen also attempted to take Mount 45, a highly strategic point in Ladikia. After the completion of the battle, Sheikh Abu Ahmad remained in Ribat with his soldiers in the Ladikia mountains. In the period which there was a break fighting, Abu Ahmad trained the Mujahideen in military tactics. He taught the Mujahideen that jihad was not only about fighting, but involved many things, including long hours of guarding, which required sabr and steadfastness. Sheikh Abu Ahmad was also involved in Kindi and Halab, central prison, as he constantly used to send his soldiers there. After months of preparation, Mujahideen from different brigades joined forces and chose Commander Abu Musa al-Shishani as commander of the new battle to be launched. Sheikh Abdullah Muhaysini also arrived at the scene to partake in the battle and incite the Mujahideen.
بين المهاجرين والأنصار لم تؤثر فيهم هذه الفتنة، فعلاقة المهاجرين بالأنصار هي علاقة الإيمان. فالمهاجرون هم الذين ودعوا أمهاتهم وآبائهم وأطفالهم وأبنائهم ليفدوا أهلهم بالشام بأرواحهم ودمائهم، والأنصار هم الذين كان لهم السبب في هذا الجهاد وهم الذين
Other experienced commanders such as Muslim Shishani, Sanafi al-Nasr, Abdullah al-Hasan al-Suri and Sakar al-Jihad also joined in. On the 21st of March 2014, the Mujahideen launched the battle named Al-Anfal battle. The Mujahideen caught the enemies of Allah by surprise. In the first few hours of the battle, the Mujahideen managed to gain great advance on Assad's forces' territory. The final Syria-Turkey border post, which was held by Assad's forces, was taken by the Mujahideen. Then the town of Kasab was opened. Sheikh Abu Ahmad with his soldiers and other Mujahideen attacked Mountain 45, and Allah gave them victory. For the first time in the jihad in Asham, the Mujahideen reached the Syrian coastline. The Mujahideen secured the towns of Kasab and Samra. Shortly after, the Kufr regime reorganized their soldiers and exerted a lot of effort to retake Mountain 45. Sheikh Abu Ahmad and Mujahideen fought bravely, but Allah had willed that the Kufr regime were able to regain the observatory towers on Mountain 45. The Mujahideen held their positions around the mountain, holding hundreds of Assad troops from advancing. At this point, many of the Mujahideen fought extremely bravely, and sometimes for days without food or sleep. Sheikh Abu Ahmad was with them fighting, patient in the hardship. Mortars and rockets rained down continuously. Sheikh Abu Ahmad was wounded and eventually found his place with his Rab fighting fi sabilillah on Mountain 45. May Allah reward Sheikh Abu Ahmad al-Maghribi and accept his shahada. How blessed he is that the lands that were prophesied by Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Asham and Khurasan, will both bear witness for him on the day of judgment. We hope that the earth will speak to its Rab and intercede for Abu Ahmad, saying, Our Lord, he travelled and fought for your sake on top of me, wherever he was needed. O Lord, accept his efforts. We do not cry over Abu Ahmad and the likes of him. They have already attained what they sought. We consider them shuhada, and Allah is the best of judges. We should cry over our own selves, as we are still in this miserable earth, not knowing whether what awaits us is Jannah or Nar, while they are in the company of their Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose deen they fought and spilled their blood for its victory to come. We ask Allah to allow us to do the same and to join us with them.
للضرغام أن يتزمجرا ما دامت الأنفاس فيها هيمما
الشام فالنور أتى لا تيأسي فالله لن يبقي العدا لا تحسبي كلا ولكننا لنصرك سوريا فالظلم مهما طال
O Muslims, brothers and sisters around the globe, Allah Most High has created us to worship Him. One of the highest forms of worship is to fight jihad in His path and struggle for His word to be the highest with our wealth and lives. The Prophet of Allah, may peace and blessings be upon him, described jihad as the peak of Islam. O Muslim, what is better than to sell the life of this world in exchange for an everlasting bliss in the life of the hereafter? O Muslim, what can hold more reward than fighting to restoring the Khilafah on the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ, which he himself has promised? O Muslim, what is greater than being killed to liberate the blessed land of Asham and to establish the deen of Allah in it? O Muslim, is there a greater honor than coming on the Day of Judgment as a shaheed? وضما فؤادي بين جنبي ما ارتوى أمتي مكلومة وضما فؤادي بين جنبي ما ارتوى الظلم مهما طال الظلم مهما طال الظلم مهما طال والليل دجى لا بد من فجر لا بد من فجر لا بد من فجر. For Muslims, what can be greater obligation than defending the Muslims from the corrupt ideologies of kufr that is being imposed on this ummah? Brother, do you not see that this ummah needs men to defend it? Your brothers in Asham have been living under the oppression of the Nusayri kuffar for almost 50 years now. They continue to inflict upon the Ahl Sunnah all kinds of brutalities. Do you not think you have any obligation towards those sieged in Ghuta of Damascus and Deir az-Zor? Do you not see it is an obligation to help those mujahideen who are fighting night and day to repel the kuffar in the front lines of Halab, Ladiqiyah, Dhala and many areas of Asham? Indeed, the mujahideen are in great need of men. من فجر لا بد من فجر يضيء لنا الدنا رغم البرد كي أحكي لكم خذلان شعب جاوز المليار سأنام في تلك الظروف لعلكم ترون قلبا بالأسى قد فار سأنام يوما واحدا أو مثله أو قل سنين وربما أطوار. O ulama of this ummah, the land of Asham has been engulfed in a sea of kufr for over half a century, and the people of Asham are thirsty for knowledge of the deen of Allah. The mujahideen need your counsel and wisdom. We ask you, O respected ulama of this ummah, to join the mujahideen in the land of Asham, help them with your fatwa, and advise them, for indeed we are in great need of men of knowledge. Is it not shameful that the scholars of the Rawafida openly encourage the Rawafida Shia to fight the Muslimin, while the ulama of Ahl Sunnah provide excuses to the youth of the Ummah and prevent them from leaving for the lands of jihad? O wealthy of this Ummah, will you be miserly with your wealth when you are about to pass your wealth to your inheritors? Nothing of your wealth will remain with you except that which you send forth for the sake of Allah. And is there an avenue more rewarding to spend in than jihad? O doctors of the Ummah, will you not use your profession to seek the pleasure of Allah and the hereafter? Or will you use the gift that Allah has given you to seek the pleasure of this world, which is about to leave you anyway? O youth of this Ummah, the burden of uplifting this Ummah is on your shoulders. Rise up and fulfill your duty, and do not hesitate. We are in the inheritors of the legacy of Umar radiallahu anhu, of Salahuddin, of Osama bin Laden. rise up and fulfill your duty. In many areas of Asham, the Mujahideen fighters are exhausted for long periods of fighting and ribat, but are unable to take a break because of the shortage of fighters. Many areas were sometimes lost due to Mujahideen unable to the shortage in fighters and resources to post people there to guard it and defend it. If jihad is not an obligation upon us now, then when will it be? Will we wait for the kuffar to enter our own homes before we wake up?
لو كنت فنانا وفارس لعبة لملأت من صفحاتكم أخبارا لكنني طفل وذنبي أنني أذيت في ديني فهل أتوارى ما لي سواك يا إله فنجنا وزد الطغاة مذلة وصغارا والله لن أحظى بعيش هانئ حتى أرى كبش الفدا بشارا حتى يصافح نصرنا شهداءنا وأرى حماة تكبر استبشارا حتى يعم السلم في أرجائنا نحيا كراما إخوة أحرارا نحيا كراما إخوة أحرارا نحيا كراما إخوة أحرارا نحيا كراما إخوة أحرارا.
We have put together this audio hastily in the hope that it will inspire Muslims to the jihad and sacrifice of the shuhada and to inspire Muslims to join their ranks. We ask Allah to make it a means of gaining His pleasure. We ask forgiveness for our shortcomings and our mistakes. Recorded in the land of Asham, Sha'ban 1435, June 2014.